Unleashing Leadership Potential's mobile app will enable you to view and listen to our monthly leadership conversations about leadership development through engaging with prominent ethical leaders, hearing their stories, and learning from their successes and failures. Access premium content and teachings for a small subscription fee. By downloading the app, you can access teachings from Maurice Khadebe, access monthly free content, exclusive Q&A sessions, stay up to date on our up-and-coming events. Download the app now.
Today, I'm really pleased to introduce a friend, a person that we've worked together for many, many years, and a person that I've said in my social media, a person who's worked hard. I know Sipho when he was starting ASC. We were starting Excel at that point in time. And I think we were pretty young now. I can see he's gray. You see? Oh, yes, you got cool, man. And I was still young. I still had some hair then. But I've seen him building the organization, and it became Exaro. And I've seen him focusing on one thing, coal. And that's why I'm proud to invite him to come and speak to you. His credentials are there in the public domain, but I can tell you, he's now an independent non-executive director. He tells me he's a pensioner now. He's an independent non-executive director at Sanlam. He's been a CEO of Exaro Coal, just retired on the 31st of March this year, some few days ago. And he was the president in the Chamber of Mines of South Africa, CEO and a founder of ASC Coal. And at that time, he was also at the beginning as MD of Alstom, South Africa. Sipho fundile ke bafowethu. And nema degree akhe a genuine. Yeah. He's got a BCom from KwaZulu Natal. And then he also did an MBA at Boston University. Nkosi, sondela mntaka baba.
Yeah, this is tough. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I had prepared a presentation, and I was told this afternoon, or just now, that it's irrelevant. I should just forget about it and come here and talk. So you'll forgive me because I as a result, don't have a structured conversation or a speech with you. I just want to say thank you very much to Program Director and to the boss for inviting me. Quite frankly, I got lost, I don't know how many times, trying to go past this place, and it says 155 Kruger Road, and I ended up there, and it said, arrived, and there was nothing. And I mean, it's so dangerous, all of us being leaders, being business people, that at some point you give people guidance and direction, and they think they are going somewhere, and they say, arrived, and there's nothing. But you see, the key thing is, it may not be such a bad idea if you did that, because a person may just arrive at a place where there's nothing. But if that person is prepared to do something about a desolate kind of situation, a difficult kind of situation, then that person makes an impact on that environment and on an area that people, when they look at it, they think that it's nothing. It can't assist anyone at all. So that's what I think leadership is all about at some point. It's for you to look at a situation that is hopeless in other people's eyes. And sometimes you do something about it. So having said that, and I think it's going to be the good thing about this whole situation is that a lot of people that have come before me have spoken quite a lot about leadership. I still don't consider myself a leader. Let me put it this way. I am not a leader. But I am where I am because people thought that I could do certain things. But I don't go out and say, anoint me and make me a leader. No, I haven't done that. But it's what you do about your life and about yourself that could make you who you are going forward. And there's an interesting book, and I'm sure a lot of you have read it so many times, by Amy Chua. It's called The Triple Package. Triple Package. That book is very interesting because it talks about three things in life. It talks about what distinguishes people from other people. And you find that one of the things that they raise is there are people who walk around here with that superiority complex. And whenever they get to a particular situation, they say, I have arrived. Hey, I can do things. And I can dominate people. You know, you've got people like that who are very, very strong, very powerful. When they get to a place, they need to take charge. They want to lead. And they get upset if they don't take that position. And they have this superiority complex. It's like certain countries are like that. When they want to take leadership, they just take it, you know. And there are organizations like that. When they get to a particular point, they just take leadership. And of course, there are companies like that. And I was hoping that Exaro would be like that, but I failed. That it would have that, we're just arrogant about life, and you come in and you say, I do that. Is that a bad trait or a good trait? I'm not going to comment on that, and I'm not going to pronounce on that, but there is a kind of people who are like that. But there's another one who suffer from insecurity. Suffer from insecurity because maybe of some pain that has happened to them, that over time they sit there and they think, oh, who am I? I can't do anything. It's like people who, like us, we've been dominated for so long, for many, many years. You could go to, you don't start with the colonialists. You start with the guys who made you a slave, and you were part of that. But for the slave traders to succeed, they used you. They came to you and say, hey, man, chief, I need some X number of men or women from your community. Can I get them? I'll give you a mirror. And you say, just round up that community and give it to these people. And you do that one as a people. And so if you look at people, the pain that they have gone through, they have lost hope. I mean, I quite like what you were saying with regards to the NDP and how you could instill hope in people. So people who are insecure, they've got nothing. But I mean, if you look at, I don't know whether you guys watched the cricket team, the West Indies team in the T20. They were vilified, belittled, called all sorts of things by their own in Jamaica. And they were given no hope. But they used just that just that other people don't take us very seriously. They look at us as non-entities, as nothing. And they took that trait and they say, we're going to prove a point. I came here with nothing, but I want to, at the end of the day, end up with something. And that's another portion of that, where people who have nothing, and I look at South Africa, and we could talk about that. And in that book, they make a very good example about African Americans being immigrants into the US, also being slaves in the US. And they sit there in the US, and to this day, they're still crying about quite a lot of things. And if you look at the Nigerians, and they are such a special people, wherever they come, they cause havoc. You feel that they are there. Only one of them will make you feel that someone is around, or someone is around. So when they got to the States and you look at the successes that they have made, you'll be so amazed and surprised. Even though they were down and out, suffered from colonialism, but one day they've decided that, you know what, I've got it. I'm going to come in and do it. And they came in and led in those kinds of situations, difficult as it is. And of course, the third one that people talk about in this book is impulse control, where things happen. But you can read the situation and say, this is what it requires right now. I mean, if you look at the development and growth over a period of time, you would know that in the US, for instance, the greatest billionaires, the bigger billionaires that were created were after the Second World War, when everyone was desperate. So through other people's pain and desperation, they said, we can provide a solution. It's difficult, but we can provide a solution under these conditions. And that was very, very important, that if I look at us today as South Africans, you need people who can read the situation. And we talk of leadership, we talk of politics, and we can talk about that a little later. But if you, when you just follow people and you behave like a herd, when everyone says, Zuma must fall, and everyone's going to say Zuma must fall, but what happens after that? If you don't think about those things, and you say, by removing the president, for instance, you would have resolved the problem. You're not going to resolve the problem. But leaders will say, okay, if we move this one out, how do we deal with the situation? The issues that you've raised, poverty, all those issues that affect society. So it's people who look at gaps. So a lot of billionaires were emerged in the US around after the Second World War. Trains, rail, and all sorts of people. The Rockefellers made big bucks. And then another wave of these IT people came in even in the 50s. They started making huge sums of money. And even now, people are making quite a lot. And I just think that today, it is our time as South Africans, because we're facing a very challenging time. And if you have arrived at a place and it says arrived and there's nothing, it is your chance to do something about it. It's very, very important. But don't just follow other people. Don't just follow other people, because that's a very dangerous thing, because you don't know where you're going to end or land up if you keep on following people. So I was told by Morris to talk about my own situation. And this is what this is my story that I'm going to tell you, which is really not something to write home about. It's not important, but I implore you just to listen to it for what it's worth, because I'm here anyway. I was born in a place, and I'm not going to mention it for now, because you're going to laugh at it. But where my family comes from, it's outside a place called Lousberg, Ngoje, which is outside Vryheid. So affiliate Vryheid outside there. So that's where the family was. But you know that what happened in the 40s and the 50s, in the 50s and the 60s, families that were there were ejected and strewn all over the country. And my parents, for some reason, ended up at a place called Enkandla. And that's where I was born, actually. So there were things that happened in my life, and I'll mention two things. You will recall in the 60s and in the early 60s and the 50s that as a black person, there was just a few things you could do in life. Beyond that, it was not necessary to do other things. So going to school was really not important. So my parents thought that I should go to school. So we went to school. And there's this friend of mine, because I started befriending other racial groups. And he's here with me, and he comes back after assimilating certain things, and he says, "So why are you going to school? Why are you learning something?" And I said, "No, because it's important. I want to do this in life." He says, "You know what, I don't have to do anything. My color of my skin is good enough. I'll be your boss forever." Do you understand that? And I understood that, from then onwards, that was my place. He will always be my boss. And I saw it happening, so they would be my boss. Second thing that I want to mention to you is, so as I grew up and became a teenager, I met this guy who told me that, "You know what, do you read your Bible?" And I said, "Yeah, I read my Bible." And he says, there's a chapter that talks about Noah in the Bible, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Shem went to the European side, Japheth went to the eastern side, and Ham went down on the continent. And you know the curse that went to him, isn't it? So you are supposed to serve me. You don't understand that. But you could easily internalize those things and make them a part of you. Thank God that never happened. I changed my life as I continued, and I understood that if people will structure and categorize me and say, "This is who I am, this is where I should belong," it ain't going to happen. I have the brain, and that's why I get a little bit concerned when people forever, they are victims. I'm not a victim. That's why I'm not a historically disadvantaged person, because brain-wise, I'm not historically disadvantaged. I really am advantaged, and I can deal with any other person because I've got the brain. I'm not historically disadvantaged. Economically, yes, you can talk about other things, but I've got the brain to take myself out of that situation and put myself where I think I should be. And so all of us can do that. And therefore, I therefore find it very challenging that you sit there all the time, you're thinking, Pretoria must provide. Pretoria must provide. And I've seen them. And when I grew up, I want to repeat the story, and my colleagues at work, former colleagues at work, because they fired me, I tell them all the time that, you know what, it saddens me if you go and listen to a person, and a person, "I want a house. Government must build me a house." You know, when I grew up, I was taught by my elders that you don't build a house for another man. A man must build his own house. A man must ensure that he takes care of his own family. And that's it. And this is what maketh you. It makes you a man. It makes a person, a family, to be a family, because they all would have toiled and struggled. So this whole notion of saying, government must build me a house all the time, and because there is a need to build you a house. I'm not going to run away from that. So if your house is built and it's sitting there, and there's a window broken, and you end up saying, "This government, it's been 6 months, they haven't fixed this window in this house." I am not even sure what it says about us as a people. So you get into this thing of being so insecure as a person. you're insecure and you're down and out and you're expecting sympathy all your life. And if you are going to be a good leader as a continent, as a people, those things you must get out of them and focus on certain things. So Morris is quite right. I'm a pensioner right now. I chose to be a pensioner. I chose to be a pensioner because I think it's time to start something and it's time for you to move on if you're no longer going to add any value. And I just think that people need to know that you're not going to be there forever in any particular situation. And people who sit on forever doing one and the same thing and not wanting to pass on the baton will kill those organizations, will kill those institutions. They will never survive. I mean, I therefore felt that there's a friend of mine who used to say to me all the time, Sipho, when you start in a job, when you begin your work life, make sure that you work yourself out of the job from day one. Make yourself out of the job, so that you open up space for some other people to come in. Otherwise, you're going to start hogging and hoarding things, and you'll destroy the organization. And that is why we can never build institutions, because you think that the institution is you. You are just a passing phase. You do your time, you do your shift, and you move on. Someone better than you. And I was listening to this clip here, someone saying, in fact, what is Mrs. Mtet saying, you must always surround yourself with people who are better than you. And that's very important. And I think that if we are going to succeed as a people, you have to do that. And I think we have done that. And I boasted Exara and I said, you know what, I'm probably in this era, I'm the only one who produces two CEOs at the same time. One at Exara, one at ArcelorMittal at the same time from my exco. And that is very, very important to know that, because you don't just hog things, but you just move on. So Morris and I we had this thing. I mean, he worked hard, shame, But I always looked at this man saying, hey, my goodness, he's pushing his oil and gas business. And I said, you know what, it's not me. I have no clue about this whole thing. I have done my time insofar as mining is concerned. And the reason why I got into mining is because I thought, firstly, let me put it this way. Confidence is very important, and you need other people to assist you to know that you know something, to remember that you know something. Sometimes you could shortchange yourself and think that you don't know much, and yet you do. So I was in that situation, having worked for companies like Anglo, companies like Genco, which became BHP Billiton, having worked for ABB, having worked for Alstom. I still never thought that I was in a position to do certain things until other people said to me, you know what, stop wasting time, start making a difference in the country, start participating, because you can. And I realized that, you know what, I had done my time. I had done my time. Two, I had focused on things that I can be better at, and that is a little bit of mining knowledge. So I said, this one I know. So whatever I do in this field, I know that chances are that I will succeed because I have the knowledge, I've done my time, I have got scars. So to take on something that I have no clue about, I felt at the time that wouldn't work. And I'm not suggesting that that will not work for you. I'm sure it will. But for me, it was important that when I walk amongst people, and I will tell you what, there are many stories I can tell you about what happened when you meet with your colleagues and they look at you and say, what have you got? Let's look at his or her credentials. And they say, you've got nothing. What can you teach us? We know this game. Miners are very notorious for that. They have to know that you've been there, you've done this and this and that and that. Say, oh, yeah, we respect you. We respect you very much, so you're fine. Ben Magara of Lonmin was telling me a story. he went down underground. And of course, workers were saying to him, what do you know? He said, I can drill this thing, this area for you. I said, you're smoking. We're just happy that one of the CEOs has managed to come here because they never come anyway. And he said, okay, I'll sort them out. So one day, he donned his overall, he went down there, and he took a drill. And he started drilling properly in the manner and the way you drill. And they said that as he was drilling the third hole, they said, no, it's enough, go away. But he earned that respect because they understood that he had earned the knowledge. And that is what probably kills empowerment in this country today, is because we sometimes have no clue of what we're doing. But we do it because the law says we do it, and the money may be good to do it, so we do it. But if you're going to make something that is, and create an institution, you've got to have knowledge and you have to do time. It's very, very important to do that. So in my journey, as Boris was struggling on the oil and gas side, on the mining side, I think we did that. And based on the principles that I knew something. The second one was, I'm not going to be just an investor like any other person, but I'm going to go and do some work and do time. And there's no money in doing time, by the way. Let me tell you one thing. But you earn the respect of people. I honestly believe that my kids, and I've got lots of kids, and today I've got about 17 kids, in case you don't know that. So we guys from Nkandla work very hard. So in the midst of all the work that I'm doing, I do have kids, and I have time to make kids. So it's very, very important for you to acknowledge that. So armed with those kinds of things, not making babies, but the important thing is knowledge and all those things. I think, and wanting to participate and work. And I think that's why we have, and I think we are on a path of success, is because all people are prepared to do time, are prepared to work, are prepared to do something. They're not just going to sit there and sip a nice cognac and do nothing, but they do that one. And one of the things that I learned in life, and I've always been fascinated about legislation. When things don't work well, people tend to say, we'll strengthen the law, we'll put more laws. People will get around the law. So you better negotiate with people rather than putting laws after laws after laws, because you'll end up not implementing those laws. You'll fail to implement the laws. People are very agile these days, and they can do whatever they like. So it's important that you negotiate that. So I've been fascinated by this whole thing of empowerment being 50+1. And I'm saying, gee, this is really cool, man, 50+1. But I look at all successful companies around the world, and I've never seen one that has become an institution that is run by people who are 50+1. I've never seen that. I mean, if you look at two companies in South Africa that did well from 1917 and onwards, took Avman and take Anglo-American. Avman were more focused on controlling things. And over time, they never grew and became a bigger giant like Anglo-American. Whereas the Oppenheimer family ran Anglo-American with probably 8% at some point, just 8%. But they controlled the company. So it's in the way you structure your organization. Because, I mean, if you're 50+1, as other companies are, and Xaro is one of them, if you want to grow the business, you can't grow it. Because if I go to the very same people who I would say are from historically disadvantaged people, their background, and say, let's assist each other, give me your money. I have no money, I'm just waiting, I'm still dealing with the debt. I don't have money. So you will never grow. You'll be so dependent on your balance sheet all the time. You'll never grow the organization. Whereas an organization that has that flexibility, and I look at Xstrata and us started almost at the same time. But on year 8, during the boom times, when we were about 40 billion rand as an organization, Xstrata was close to $50 billion in terms of market cap. But they could do that but we couldn't do that. So creating institutions, you've got to deal with issues of law and all the others. So I'm going to end my conversation so that if there are questions, is that okay, sir? Okay. So yeah, I am a pensioner now. I think we've run an organization. I think the organization is successful. I think the leadership that is there right now continue doing a great job and will continue doing a great job simply because I think they know within themselves that they've been given full responsibilities. You know, I'm going to lie here, but these guys can tell you the truth. I have an exco, but, you know, and I suppose I get overruled many times by my exco, you know, because when I say something, they have the power to challenge me, and I don't feel bad about it, and I accept that one. I think it's important that when people logically deal with you and want for you to do certain things, allow debate to happen. It's very important that you allow debate to happen and embrace dissent in your organization. There are people who are rebellious by nature, and those are the people that you need in your organization who will always tell you that, boss, we're smoking here. You don't even know what you're talking about. And then your job as boss is for you to convince them that you have a case. Because if you have no case, forget it, shut up, and allow them to do what they have to do, because you have no basis for saying whatever you're saying. So I've been very privileged to be given the opportunity to do what I've been doing. As I said, I never considered myself a leader, but I am very grateful that I've been given an opportunity to preside over an organization. And I think it is important that as you do that one, you do certain things with respect. You respect people. Do that thing with some humility, and just focus on what you know and what you know best. So Program Director, I will stop there, and if there are questions, I will entertain them. Life you've got to face certain things that are there. And if I'm going to sit here and say, this is how you deal with challenges, I think I wouldn't be honest with you. And so each situation is different to any other situation. There were challenges, for instance, of when we started. You know, South Africa was a divided society, and I'll give you some examples. When after forming a Sizwe, we went out to a strategy, and I thought because I was one of the clever blacks, and I could therefore handle and run the strategy, and there was quite a lot of tension in the room when I'm trying to do a strategy. So you know this generic story called SWOT analysis, where you look at strengths and weaknesses and all those things. So as I was going through that process and say, what are the weaknesses of this organization that we are forming today? So one guy who was very bullish, and he just said to me, you know what, problem with you, Dark, is, that's what generally he was saying, you know nothing about mining, except you, of course, but you know nothing. My view is that you must just go and sit in Johannesburg. We'll run the business for you. You understand that? So I could react in a very negative and angry way when that happened. But I didn't. I honestly didn't. What I did, I said, so you say these people, these managers who are coming in, have no knowledge. Can we put it down and try and find a solution around that? So after a while, when we're coming up to solutions, and I said, there's one issue here that's been raised. Management that are coming in have no clue of what mining is. How could we assist them? They are the first ones who said they must come and spend more time here at the mine and do all this kind of thing. So that person, nothing happened to him. But the good thing is that, of course, he left after a couple of years. I don't know what happened to him. But the truth of the matter is, you could diffuse that situation. It was just a challenge. I could have been angry dealing with that situation, but it was not necessary. I mean, not too long ago, was it 3-4 years ago, at Exaro, we had another chap, and I mean, as things were said, he was saying quite a lot of things to another member of staff who happened to be a black woman. And there was no development or training or anything. And of course, as she confronted him, he said, yeah, you know, you guys know nothing. Even Sipho, when he came here, he had to spend a year trying to understand. You guys take too long to get to these things, you know. And honestly, I could have fired the guy. I had my team coming in and we talked, and we called him. And we had this woman sit here and said, okay, you're suggesting that you've said these things and therefore I'm entitled to fire you. You know that, yes. But I'm not going to fire you. Your job from now onwards is to deal with this woman. Make sure that she has a proper contract. Make sure that she develops. Make sure that all these things happen to her. In 6 months' time, we will meet. If things work well, if you've done all the things and she's happy with that, you still have your job. Otherwise, you ain't got your job. So that's how you deal with it. It was a crazy situation, but that's how you deal with it. The second question was on humility and leadership. Yeah, it's kind of difficult. Because when you are a nice person, people tend to take advantage of you, tend to abuse you, tend to do certain things. But I honestly have found that I gained more respect by not abusing people. When I get to a situation where I needed to be a little bit arrogant, I could become arrogant. But most of the time, I'm never arrogant. That's very important. But you know, people who have been hurt big time in the past and who have those anxieties could easily use those such that they become successful. And say, for instance, I mean, there are many nations, if you could look at them, who came in, I mean, even here in South Africa. I mean, we look at immigrants coming in South Africa with nothing, and you laugh at them. But after a year or two, they've got something. They are better than you because they use that one and they say, you know what, I'm not going to stay in the situation where I am, but I'm just going to go quietly build my life and rebuild that thing. So there's no formula, but I think what is important as a leader, there are times where you have to be very assertive and make sure that people understand who the leader is. And when they need guidance and direction at a particular time, you have to stand up and do that one. But most of the time, you have to be mindful of the fact that you're dealing with other souls, you're dealing with other people, and you've got to treat them in that particular way. Are there things that I could have done differently? No, because I just think that the environment at the time pushed me to do whatever I had to do, and I had to deal with that situation. But I just think that going forward, you know, they used to say probably 20 years ago that the world's knowledge doubles every 100 years. And today they say the world's knowledge doubles every 6 months, or every 1 year, things change. So whatever today you have and you think it's a competitive advantage could be gone tomorrow. And that's why I always, you know, feel very sad when we start fighting about mines that are old, that were built in 1950, 1960, and they say we want to be empowered in those mines that are old. Because you're going to get involved in those mines, and they're going to give them to you. And once you've got those mines, over a period of time, it's going to be so costly to continue building those mines, to extracting ore in those mines. And you're going to be sitting with this huge closure liability, environmental liability, without benefiting anything out of that. But we still fight. We want all these mines. We fight everyone instead of saying, okay, Anglo-American, this is what you used to do. I want my people to participate in something that is new. Can you start something? I'm going to give you these concessions, and you will allow my people to come in. And this is how you're going to do it. I don't want to get involved in this whole thing. Because in the end, all these old operations are given to us, and it's going to be our problem going forward. And you still fight for them. So, and the second thing is, technology speaks these days. And unless we get our kids, because I'm not talking about us now, I'm talking about our kids. If we could get our kids to go and learn things that are now more relevant. Some years back we got, and there's Johan Meyer sitting there. We undertook a project, wanted to look at mine of the future. And we got these engineers in training to look at that one. It was quite amazing what they were seeing that could be built. I've never seen drones moving all over. I've never seen a mine looking like Disneyland and all those kinds of things. And that's where the world is going. So I'm not going to do things differently, but I'm saying going forward, we need to do things differently. If we want to be the leaders as a country, we need to lead. South Africa used to be a leader in mining, for instance. We lost the yellow jersey, as Brian Gilbertson will say. We lost it. But we can lead in other areas as well, areas of technology. And it's not going to affect jobs that much, but it will happen. So I think that's the first one. Second one, what are my plans for the future? The sad thing is that if you are an operator and working, and there's my former company secretary here, and they made sure that I earned no money. I probably was one of the lowest paid CEOs in the country. Quite frankly, and it's true, we can have a look at the records. My former boss used to say, Sipho, I don't understand why people, if I have a bed to sleep on, there's only one. I'm a pensioner, my kids are gone, and everyone is gone, but I have a bed, and I have a car, and my wife has a car, and I have a good pension, and I can travel. What more do I need in life, really? Why must I get all those billions and billions and millions and millions? Because they mean nothing. You're going to leave this stuff behind. You're not going to take it with you, isn't it? You're not going to take it. You remind me of another lady, the wife of a gentleman who said, when I die, give me all my money. Put it with me. I must go and die. Put it in the coffin with me. Put it there. I want it. So he insisted on this one happening. So she said, that's fine. So he died, as men die first, anyway, all the time. So the man died, and of course, she made sure that she did an inventory of everything, and she understood that he was worth a couple of millions. So she wrote a check for a couple of million and deposited it in the coffin and said, "There's your money." What is that? You look at that. I think there's a big role to be played in South Africa, honestly, and I would love to continue playing a key role for as long as my health is still good. Forget about the stone dust here, but I honestly think that there's more work to be done in this country. We need to do more and come up with stuff that no one is doing. This is the most important thing. Don't dream of things that other people are doing. Try and find an angle that is different to any other one and touch other people's lives. That's the key thing. And at my age to dream of that is quite difficult, but I'm going through that process right now. So this is what I'm hoping to do going forward. State capture. One thing that is good about South Africa is that one person coins a phrase, and everyone clashes into that, and it becomes a song. If you open TV, state capture, there's these Guptas and state capture. No, state capture started with Oppenheimer's. No, I honestly don't know what state capture is, what it means. So I'm still going to battle. I'm going to find a definition. Once I've found a definition of what state capture is, I will deal with that one. But if it means that you've captured an individual, but you can't capture all of us, quite frankly. And let's say, for instance, use the example, if you've captured the president, you haven't captured the state in reality, because the state has the authority and the power to get rid of the president. You can capture him for a period of time, but at some point he will go. And that's a given. And I don't know what it is that you're capturing. But as business, you can influence. You know, there's some years back when I was starting looking at stats of things in the country, someone was saying me there are about 39 people who control South Africa economically, you know. Because there are people who can do that, who can squeeze you because they have that economic advantage. Is that state capture? Maybe that's the one. But I just think that now with competition as it is happening and technology as it is moving, I'm not sure how you could manage to capture things. I mean, I look at Eskom today and I say, wow, Eskom is such a huge entity. But Eskom, in terms of power supply into this country, I can bet my bottom dollar in the next 30 years, it will be a very small organization. Simply because the events that are taking place in society are not going to allow that to happen. I mean, right now, if you go to any household, people are putting solar and they are becoming more self-sufficient, and there's no legislation that governs that. And if you look at the consumption that the country has got, it hasn't moved from 1990 to now. The country has an installed capacity of about 41,000 megawatts. During apartheid years in the 90s or early after that, the country was consuming about 28,000 megawatts, not 40, which was installed. And when the country was growing at 4%, 3%, 4%, we were at 35. We've never reached 40. We'll never reach 40 in the normal, formal way. But the country still continues. Yes, there are other industries that have collapsed, that have moved out, like smelters, big consumers of power, but things change. So I don't understand. The capture will happen, I think it's important, but we'll leave all those that are capturing something behind at some point, and we'll be moving to other things. So my advice is that if you see that someone is capturing Eskom or is capturing a mine, make him or her irrelevant by thinking something else that you want to do. This is different. That's all I can say. You know, I'll talk openly about this thing. You know, where this land claim story, you know, that one, before I answer you, it's very important that we continue with that one. But as the state spends lots of money in acquiring land, giving it to communities. You know, I said we come from a place called Lowsburg, and that has happened there. And there was a huge farm, and that was doing lots of citrus fruit for export and everything. But you go there today, it's lying fallow, there's nothing that is going on. Instead, communities, they fight each other like you could never believe, and nothing is happening. And you can take that thing and mirror it. It mirrors quite a lot of stuff that we've seen happening. But here's the thing. I just think that land is a very emotive and an emotional issue, just like mining. And until we probably feel that we own the land, it may become very difficult for us to feel that we own South Africa. It just goes like that. Land is something that we feel, particularly black people, they just feel that the land, and the Afrikaners actually, they just feel that the land is very, very important, that we deal with that one. But here's the thing, the land that you've got, if you do not know and you have no clue of how to deal with this land, is just as good as the land that you don't have. So it is quite important that if you gain the land, be innovative about it, do something about it, as an individual and as a group. Communities tend to fight, and that's why I like capitalism when it comes to this. This is the point where I draw a line and call myself a capitalist. Oh, it's not only about capitalism. because you're going to start saying this white monopoly capital, you know. No, but the important thing is that if I own a piece of land, it's owned by me, I'm better placed to do something about it. If that land is owned by a community, chances are that it doesn't work. And I've seen that one. And I'm not suggesting that it doesn't work in all areas, but there are areas where it is working, but in the majority, it doesn't work. And I think we need to find a formula to make that work. Why must we find a formula? Because one person that fails, one community that fails, the whole program of distributing land is laughed at. And you don't want that to happen. And if that were to happen, black people are laughed at. And you become a laughing stock. So you've got to look at life and say, how can I ensure and we ensure that we take a lead as a people in that particular piece of land? So I honestly, I'm just saying that we need to allow ourselves time to think carefully about how we utilize land and how we distribute land. But it is fundamental that we get this land, but we must know what to do with this land. The second question probably will talk about technology. And I truly agree, and it's one of the most painful processes that in the mining industry we deal with, where you're talking, because of so much unemployment in the country, and you're talking of mechanization. But here's the deal that I want to put to you. Let me use coal and not other commodities. When I started in the coal business, which was in the 80s, early 80s, some of you were probably not here. South Africa was probably the third largest coal exporter in the world. South Africa was producing at the time just under 50, for export now, under 50 million tons for export. That's all we did. Indonesia never existed. Australia was just a few notches ahead of us. We were bigger than anything that you could think of, on the coal side. Richards Bay was really the wonder of the world. Everyone would come and have a look at it and say, wow, it's quite amazing. But what happened when this boom started? Indonesia came to the fore, and 5 years ago, Indonesia was producing over 300 million tons. South Africa still had not reached 70 million tons. Australia increased their tonnage. Everyone increased their tonnage. We never moved. We lost that competitive advantage from number 3. We ended up at number 6. We ended up, just like that. If I look at iron ore, for instance, Kumba, we have Kumba here. Kumba produces high quality iron ore, and Johan can tell us on that one. But it's not growing, It's not going anywhere. And it can't compete with the world. If you look at Rio, 15 years ago in Australia, they were doing about 90 million tons. And they said, to make it work for us, we need to get to 300 million tons. And they are closer to the market, which is China. We are sitting here in the far end of the continent. We cannot compete with them. And I'm not going to use the numbers that are published. You look at a number, Kumba produces, the number that they put out there was about $50 a ton FOB cash cost to Saldanha before it goes to China. The Australians were doing it at $24 a ton. And there was no ways we could compete with them. So this country needs to make a choice. If you don't want technology, you will not compete with the world. And the world will move. So I am very sympathetic of where we are, but we can change that by focusing on things like education and training people. And people must be willing to be trained. And our kids must be able to go to school so that they can compete with the world. Otherwise, it's not going to work. How many are we now? Close to 60 million people, isn't it? Australians are around 25, 26 million. And they beat us hands down in all sorts of respect. And I think it is important that. So unions, in my view, are going to die at some point if they are not careful. Because for me to survive as the business, and I'll talk openly, I need to look at the numbers and say, you know what? If I want to play in this game, I need to modernize my business such that I can compete with those other guys. If they are producing at $25 a ton FOB, because I'm far from the market in China, I must produce at $20 a ton because the freight cost is going to kill me getting there. So I have that advantage. So if unions don't accept that and embrace that one, it's going to kill us. It's going to kill us as the country. And that's where a country becomes a leader, by developing certain things. And we need to find other types of employment for our people and not only rely on the old stuff that other people have done. So in terms of the unions, really, I'm going to say to you, I think we need to assist all of us. And it's one of the things that I think I would do during this time, on the employment side, to see how best we can do it, but differently to this one, so that we don't stifle the growth of business. Because we're going to kill business if we're going to saddle it with cost after cost, which talks to the high cost. One of the largest costs that we have in business now, it's the labor cost. You can say what you like, but it is the labor cost. It's one of the biggest in some of the mines. And we've got to deal with that one way or the other. Gone are the days when South Africa had cheap labor. And I know that the amounts of money we're paying to laborers is not sufficient, and they should be earning better than that. But as things stand right now, it is the highest cost bucket. In the cost bucket, this is the highest variable that you've got to look into and deal with. So we've got to the leadership component of South Africa needs to find ways of ensuring that this works without impacting negatively on people. We need to find ways of ensuring that our people continue to employ, but without stifling business, because we will never grow. You know, I spoke about people who are by nature are just arrogant, and they could do anything. They walk in, you can feel it. But there are those that have been bruised and probably have lost confidence in the process. I think it's very difficult to deal with that one. But I've found other people that lack of confidence becomes a strength to them, in such that they turn around and say, you know what? I live amongst people who have achieved so much. How do I ensure? In other words, there's something in you which says, I cannot remain where I am. I need to do something about my own situation. I am not going to rely on someone else to help me. I will help myself to get some. As leaders, we need to instill that one. Morris was saying the same thing. You know, this nation is wounded. Period. You can say that, whatever you like. But it is our job, wherever you are deployed to play that role of encouraging each and every one of us, such that we regain our confidence, such that we know that we can be better than any nation, such that we know that as a people we can be innovative, create stuff, and the world will come to South Africa and say, how are they doing it? Let's go and learn from South Africa. Until we get to that level, we will always be a footnote everywhere and all the time. And it pains me that our people, our nation, and our nations are always a footnote, in spite of all the things that we have. So to gain confidence, I don't think it's going to come from any other person. But I think Morris, what he's doing is helping all of us. And may this continue to other sections and sectors of the economy, where you talk to people, instill confidence in them. I mean, that's the only thing you have. But the other one is that there must be something that you have. And that is why it is important to do time. Because once you do time and you've gained experience, you can stand amongst people and say whatever you have to say, because that is critical. You know, this country, for everyone to feel that it belongs to us, we need industrialists. There's just no two ways about it. I mean, and we've got to start working very hard. And I'm so pleased that everyone sitting in this room will become an industrialist or is an industrialist. I'm very, very grateful. But you're not going to be anointed as an industrialist. You can never be anointed as an industrialist. You've got to have certain things in you, the passion to do that. You must be passionate about what you're doing. You must have some knowledge of what you want to do. And you must have some other people supporting you in doing that one. But you can't rely on, and you can rely on other people, to be fair. You can rely on people like the IDC to support you. It's very important financially. But you know, one of the weaknesses of a black nation, particularly in South Africa, is that they never talk amongst themselves. And I mean, I've been in this business for, in the mining sector and others, over 30 years. We battle to meet and talk because we're all busy. And it's something that is missing in us, just to sit there. But let me just make it very clear. We need industrialists, and that is very important. But it will happen, and it doesn't happen overnight. You know, it takes time. You can't just think that today I'm going to become an industrialist. Maybe your kid will become an industrialist. You will put up a foundation and be an industrialist. But let's also think about the future. I'm not sure now, I'm not predicting the future. But I don't believe that you're going to have these massive organizations like you used to have in the past. Because the world is moving so fast. As you start something, people are moving away from you and they are doing something. I mean, if you started a taxi business, now you have to deal with Uber, and I don't know what's going to happen after Uber, something else. So you can never create so everyone has to move on that platform. But we do need people who are industrialists. Let me put it this way, but I'm not sure whether you're going to build conglomerates like we used to build in the past.
So an ethical leader looks at what significance am I going to make? That's how he measures himself or herself. Significance in terms of the people, the impact I'm going to make in the lives of people, and how am I going to develop people, how I'm going to make them to achieve their talents and potentials and really achieve their significance in life. And that is a more valuable measurement that one you need to put in.
You really have to know the difference between right and wrong. In your life, you have to know the difference between right and wrong. You do wrong things, they will catch up with you. If you perhaps unfortunately pass away, they will catch up with your children.
There are choices that we make for ourselves every single day. Every single day, we are faced with this choice versus that choice. And you've got to really think about your choices, about your life and how you manage your life and your career and your aspirations and what you want to do with yourself. It is a really active process. Every day, at least I believe so, every day it's about actively managing what I want to do.
When you sit down and you face your day, just be sure of what your compass needle is telling you. What is your direction? What are your values? Remember those. That is your guide. And if you make decisions, all of your decisions in relation to your matrix of values, then you'll be okay. You'll do the best you can. That's the best you can do. You can't do better than that.
We must know what we stand for. We must know what we represent. We must know what we want to achieve. And we must be able to extricate ourselves so that we don't believe that we become infallible or irreplaceable.
But integrity is wholesomeness. So that what you think, say, and do, it's one and the same thing. You don't show up differently. That what people see is what they get. They don't have to second guess you.
Leadership is service. It's selfless service of the people that you lead. It is owning the decisions that you make. It is being humble enough to recognize the mistakes that you make.
So you must be able to build that self-recovery mechanism within you to always bounce back, to never allow people to write you off, and because you remember what I said, that your dream may be delayed, but it can never be denied.
So we're pioneering, we're bold, we are ever evolving, we are ever innovating. Very, very important characteristics, in my view, for an entrepreneur. If you want to remain relevant and stay ahead of the pack, just because you were the best yesterday doesn't mean you're going to be the best tomorrow. So you have to constantly be challenging yourself and saying, what am I going to do differently tomorrow? What am I going to do differently tomorrow? What new product am I going to bring in? So that when your competition is trying to catch up with you, you've moved on, you are one step ahead.
We can all say that we have values, but it's only seeing how we behave we can tell if those values are working or not. There's a very important connection. Behaviours are so much more visible in terms of how people do things.
And along the way, you will have all sorts of barriers. You will have barriers of financial resources. You will have barriers of not even have enough knowledge in the subject that you want to handle. But if you stick to the plan, and you are enthusiastic enough, sufficiently enthusiastic, then you are going to achieve your goal.